You learned to make yourself smaller before you even understood what that meant. You learned that your voice could wait, that your feelings weren't as important as keeping the peace, that taking up space meant taking something away from someone who needed it more. You weren't neglected. You weren't abused. Your family wasn't broken in any obvious way. But somehow, you became the one who didn't matter as much, the one whose needs were always secondary, the one who learned to exist quietly in the background of your own life. And nobody called it anything, because it wasn't dramatic enough to have a name. It was just how things were. If you felt invisible in your own family, if you grew up feeling like your presence didn't quite register, this video is going to explain something you've carried your whole life without having the words for it. Here's what actually happened. Psychologists call this emotional invisibility, or family scapegoating by omission. It's not what your family did to you. It's what they didn't do. They didn't see you. They didn't ask. They didn't notice when you stopped trying to be noticed. Dr. Jonice Webb, who researches emotional neglect, describes it this way. Some children aren't actively pushed aside. They're just never pulled forward. And your brain learned something from that. You learned that your job was to not cause problems, to not need attention, to not ask for reassurance or validation or proof that you mattered. Because the less space you took up, the easier everything was for everyone else. So you became the invisible one, not because you wanted to, because it was safer than risking being seen and still being overlooked. And now you're an adult who doesn't know how to take up space without apologizing for it. Let's talk about what emotional invisibility actually looks like in daily life. Because this pattern doesn't stay in childhood. It follows you into every relationship, every job, every moment when you have the chance to be seen. Tuesday morning, you're in a meeting and you have an idea, a good one. But before you can speak, someone else jumps in. And instead of fighting for your turn, you just let it go. Because your instinct isn't to assert yourself. Your instinct is to make space. That's what you've always done. That's what feels safe. Thursday evening, you're with friends and someone asks, "What do you want to do?" And you immediately deflect. "I don't care, whatever you want." Not because you truly don't have a preference, but because stating a preference feels like imposing. Like asking people to consider you when you learned a long time ago that you're the one who considers everyone else first. Saturday night, you post something online, a thought, a photo, something personal, and when nobody responds, when it just sits there, that familiar feeling returns, the one that says, "See, you don't matter. You're not interesting enough. You're taking up space you haven't earned." That's not low self-esteem. That's learned invisibility. That's your nervous system remembering what happened when you tried to be seen as a child and nobody looked. Research from the Journal of Family Psychology found that children who experienced passive emotional neglect, not being actively harmed, just not being actively seen, develop what psychologists call existence anxiety. You're not afraid of failure or rejection. You're afraid that your existence itself is an inconvenience. And here's what makes this particularly exhausting. You're incredibly good at seeing other people. You notice when someone's upset. You remember details about their lives. You ask thoughtful questions. You make people feel heard in a way that nobody ever made you feel heard. But when someone tries to do the same for you, when someone asks, "How are you really?" or "What do you need?" Your brain short circuits because you learned that your feelings were background noise, that your needs were optional, that the way you stay safe is by staying small. Dr. Lindsay Gibson, who researches emotional neglect, calls this self-erasure as a survival strategy. You didn't choose to become invisible. You learned that invisibility was the price of belonging. That if you made yourself small enough, undemanding enough, quiet enough, maybe you'd get to stay. And here's the part that nobody talks about. This isn't just about your family ignoring you. Sometimes your family loved you. Sometimes they were good people dealing with their own pain, their own limitations. But love and attention aren't the same thing. You can be loved and still feel invisible. You can be cared for and still learn that your inner world doesn't matter as much as keeping the peace. So you became the one who adapts, the one who doesn't rock the boat, the one who learned that the way to be wanted is to not want anything. And now you're an adult who apologizes for existing, who minimizes your own pain, who feels guilty for needing reassurance or validation or proof that you're not imagining your own irrelevance. Because when you were a child, your family didn't teach you that you mattered. They just forgot to notice you were there. And you learned to finish that sentence yourself. Maybe I don't. So what does this mean for you now? First, your presence is not an imposition. The people in your life now chose you, not the invisible version. You, the real you who has needs and takes up space. Second, wanting attention is not selfish. Wanting to be noticed, remembered, prioritized. That's not needy. That's being human. And you were never allowed to be that. Third, you don't have to earn visibility anymore. You stay in people's lives by being seen, not by making yourself smaller, by stating preferences, by saying, "This matters to me." And here's what nobody tells you. The skill you built, reading people, noticing what others need, that's real. But you don't have to keep erasing yourself to use it. If you felt invisible in your own family, if you learned to exist in the background, you're not broken. You adapted. And recognizing that is already the beginning of taking up space. Watch our video on people who were always the responsible one next. Same pattern. Subscribe for more. And comment. Being overlooked or letting yourself be seen? You're not invisible anymore.